Right, this little video is about cleaning the fuel system on a Seagull outboard engine. This is a 40 plus, but the 40 minus is the same and the Century is pretty similar. This one has got a tank, some fuel is painted silver, fuel tap, fuel line, carburetor, and that is the throttle cable going out to the controller. So if we want to clean the whole system, the best thing to do is to take it off the rest of the engine. It's really simple. You're going to undo 2 bolts, and the tank will lift up. You're going to undo 1 screw here to release the carb, and you're going to undo the 2 little screws at the bottom of the throttle unit. And then you'll get this off in one piece, and it is going to look like this. And this is the one that we are going to clean. So let me move my camera and then we can start with that. Right, I'm hopeful you can see this. So let's make a start. So let's disconnect the fuel line off the tap. Now we need it's a little bit loose. That will come away. Here is the tap, which I've loosened already, and that will come away. And it has a little metal washer that is stuck on there. So the first thing you want to do is clean the tank, and only if you feel in here, well, this one is not so bad, but there's normally a lot of gritty grime, and the best way I've come up with to clean them is to put a really strong drain cleaner in here, swirl it around, leave it for a bit, it gets a bit warm, and it comes out. And I took a video of that a while ago, so there's no point in cleaning all of this and not cleaning the tank. So I will cut that little bit of the video in. Right, so for cleaning the fuel tank, the best solution I've come up with is this drain cleaner. I've tried a few. Basically you pour some of this and some of that, and you feel it heat up. You switch it around and leave it for an hour or 2, and you will be amazed what comes out. So I'm going to do these 2 and let's see how they look. Okay, let's take a look at what came out of there. Look at that. That is pretty gross. Okay, so we can just rinse these 2 out, make sure the taps are running clear, and then that's at least the first part of the fuel system cleaned. Then we have the tap. So it has a metal filter at the top here, Ewert's filter. There's the tap. And we can see how it is. Now, unfortunately, you've got to not mind the taste of petrol if you like Seagulls. So if I close it and blow, it's blocking, which is good. And if I open it, it's going really well. So this one is pretty good, but our trusty carb cleaner will go in there and give this filter a really good clean, and that will be good to go. If this tap was not sealing it, because you can see this one is quite loose, but I tested it now, it actually is blowing out a bit, then you've got a few options. You can take it off, and there's a little screw there. Take the little screw out. Let's put it next to our washer there. The tap comes out, and it has got a bit of cork on the end, and that's a bit of a bugger to change because you've got to bang that out. So conventional wisdom is your easiest option is you boil it for about 10 minutes in a pan of water, and the cork swells a bit. It works well. If that doesn't work, what I normally do is I just put a new one in. Well, if you live here in the UK, you just buy them on eBay. They're only a couple pounds. You put a new one in. So that's your choice. Some people put O-rings on them, whatever. And that goes, there's a little groove. And then we would put the screw back in just to hold it all together. Oh, I tell you what, you don't really need to watch me putting the screw in the tap. Okay, so now we have this bit. So we undo there. It's a 5/16. I've loosened it already. And it's going to come off the carbs. Let's put the carb aside for the moment. This banjo bolt will come off. And there are, can you see that here? One felt washer. There's another felt washer. They're slightly different sizes. And there is a little metal gauze filter. The banjo bolt hole there, two on the side. So again, our carb cleaner will do us good there. It goes all the way through from that side, goes out that side. That's good to go. Clean the little filter a bit, and we are good to go with that. These, the one has a slightly bigger diameter to fit over the end there. Okay. All right, now we have this. So it is kind of meant to protect the engine a bit because little bits of grit will in theory stop there in the U. So what I find works quite well is you've got to get a spraying thing that has this long goodie on it. So this is Q20 or WD-40. But the nice thing is it will go in. So as I start spraying there, and I'm wiggling this thing in there, I'm basically getting some of that grit out there. So this one is quite oily. You can see some bits of goo still in there. Now, a tricky bit, so I'm going to blow it out. Now, I'm going to hold that, I'm going to blow through there. Last time I did this, that thing hit me in the eye, so I'm just going to cover that. And quite a lot came out, which luckily didn't hit me in the eye. Let me do that again. Yeah. So that is really blowing quite nicely now, and I'm going to put a bit of carb cleaner in because it'll get that oil out. Okay, so what have we done? In theory, you've cleaned the tank, you've cleaned the fuel tap, you've cleaned the banjo bolt, and you've cleaned the fuel line. So that's the easy bit. Now we get to the carburetor, which is a very simple little thing. It's for the tank. Okay, so this is a Villiers carb, and people would say it's the metal bowl, which is the older one. If you have a slightly newer engine, it might look like that. Basically exactly the same. The difference is that this one is one piece and will come off like that. Whereas this one, which is the one that belongs to this particular engine, has got this nut at the bottom, which we take off. There's a washer, which we don't want to lose. And then its float bowl comes off. And there's a float in there. So basically how the system works is the fuel is coming in there through that pipe, and it fills this until the float bowl pushes that up, which closes that little valve. So we want to clean all of that. So again, let's do our trusty carb cleaner. You might say the cloth is dirtier than anything else, but it does seem to work. The reason we're cleaning this is because if you leave it for a year in between your Seagull regattas, petrol will mostly evaporate, but it'll leave behind the oil that you mixed into the petrol, and that's a bit gummy. So those are pretty clean. You want to clean in there as well. That's pretty clean. Okay, we are going to open this and take out the needle. We'll come to that in a second. And this effectively is the carb body. And this is the jet. Well, the jet has got one hole there, bring fuel in, one hole there, also to bring fuel in. It's got the hole in there that the needle goes into, and it's got another hole, which is where the air gets drawn in. There's kind of two ways we can clean this. We can spray, so let's hold on there and let's give it a spray. You can see it coming out there, so that's good. I can take this off, which is really just covering where the air goes in, and I can spray through there, which in theory has freed up that part of the jet. And that's probably good to go, and you can hold it up to the light and look through there and see if you can see some sun. If you want the more complicated way, which is what I do, is we're going to remove the jet. So to do that, there's a little screw here. So we're going to get ourselves in there. We're going to undo that screw. We're not going to lose it. Put it over there with our list of many things. And this jet is going to come out the top. Now this one is actually really free. Sometimes you've got to encourage them a bit. But there you have it. Isn't that a beautiful little thing? And that is your jet. And I always say it's a bit like a tiny little trumpet, because remember we said one hole there to let the fuel in, one hole there where the needle goes, and one on the side which draws the air in. I think they call it the secondary jet. And that little groove is where that retaining screw goes in to hold it in place. But now I can really get in there. I can cover that hole, and I can spray there, and I know that's free. And I can try and cover that hole My word. Let's see now. That one and that one. Play a tune. And then spray it in here. That's coming out the bottom. So I know this jet is super good, super clean. A little felt washer there that generally seems pretty robust. You'd have to order that if you wanted to change it, but generally we don't bother too much. Okay, so what is left is the little choke lever, which sometimes you need to clean that to just get it going nice and smooth. But the other main thing is where the fuel goes in. It's going in there from our banjo bolt. And as I said, this little lever here is shutting it off when it fills the bowl and letting it fill when it doesn't. And because we've now removed the jet, we can take that out. It's called a valve. It's a little sharp end. And because that is out, let's put that over there. We can give that a clean as well. Make sure that it's, there we go. So we've got a nice good fuel system. This is the tickler. So all that does is it pushes this down because we're too lazy to wait for it to fill. And actually it will slightly overfill if we push it down. And then it will release a little bit of fuel out of that hole, and then you know that it's full. Doesn't do much more than that. So our carb is nice and clean. We can put it back together. So let's do it step by step. Put the jet in with the pointy bit down. That over. The valve, not the jet. What am I talking about? Here's my beautiful jet. Let's hold that in place. Find out where that screw is going to go. Over there. And that is the groove that the screw goes into. What you definitely don't want to do is put the screw in there, because then it won't run because no air will get in. So that's the groove we're looking for. So we're trying to line it up basically. There's the, I hope you can see this, I don't know, it's a shitty camera. That's where the screw goes, that's the groove, so I'm trying to line it up as best I can. I'm holding that because I need to get that in place. There we go, we can see screw and groove. And let's see how well we do. I'm going to look in there and I can see the groove is there. Some of them are much tighter, and that's why it's got a little, not a thread there, but you can put a little spanner on there if you needed to turn it. But I just look in there and I see there's my groove and there's my screw. And I wish I could say this was easy, but it's a bit finicky because sometimes that screw does not want to line up. And this is where you edit the video so it looks like you're just super sharp with it, and really it took you about 10 minutes to line it up. No, I did actually get that. It's not seating super well. So I'm going to take it out and have another look here. Yeah, I think I got it slightly out of position. Let's try again. Maybe a little magnetic screwdriver would help. I don't know. Okay. That's a lot better. I think while we were fiddling around it, we're not at position. So that's back. That's back. Float goes either way, but you can kind of see where the dirty side was. Float bowl. Little washer. That goes on. And then think about where's this going to be on the engine. So that's going to be on. There's your tickler. So as you press the tickler, you want to see if it's full. So you want to rotate this till the little hole is under the tickler. Okay, and then there you go. That's the choke. So what does the choke do? Of course, it restricts the airflow so the fuel mix is richer. So that's normal. So quite a lot of air. And when you flick it in, it's got a little hole to restrict the air. Put that back on. And that is the Villiers Carb. Very simple and no stress. Okay, so what are we left with? We are left with the needle. So, what does the needle do? So it's a tapered needle, meaning that it's thinner there and thicker there. And it is going into that little hole at the top of the jet. So obviously when it's right down in there, it doesn't really let any fuel and air through, and that's when your throttle is closed. And as you accelerate or open the engine, it pulls out and lets more and more fuel mix through. So that's what it's doing. And most of the Seagulls came with a needle that was calibrated, you could say, for a fuel mix of 10:1. And then British Seagull worked out that with a different needle, they could run it on 25:1. So from somewhere in the 70s, they used a different needle. And so what some people do is they take an old carb like this, and they buy a new needle and they swap them, and then you run it on 25:1. There's many mixed opinions on that. I wouldn't say I've had huge success with that. But if you want to know, is your engine meant to run on 10:1 or 25:1? The only real way to ever find out is to take the needle out. So, see that little screw there? It's meant to be flush. So it's pretty flush. That's good. So now I'm going to remove it so I can get to the needle. This is not really part of cleaning the car, but it's mildly interesting, I guess, for people. And get that out. Oops. Okay, so that's what's holding it in over there. And out comes my needle. Okay, so firstly, it's got a spring on it, and the spring is tapered, and it's kind of tapered a different way that you'd expect, because the needle is going thin to fat, but the spring must go with the fat side here on the thin side of the needle, because its whole purpose is to keep the needle seated against there. So don't put the spring back the wrong way around. Okay, the needle. You won't believe it, but at the top of that needle, which you'll never see on a shitty video, is a number. And I can see that number. I normally just fiddle with my fingernail. I can feel where the number is. And if you look very carefully, that is a number 3. And number 3 is the original needle. It's 10:1. And if it doesn't have a 3 on it, then it's 25:1. It can be a 2 or it can be nothing at all. So this engine is going to run on 10:1, and I'm going to leave it on 10:1. And we could give that needle a bit of a wipe. So put my spring on with the thin side down and the fat side out, tapered spring. Put it back in here. You'll see there that, oops, that's the spring doing its work. And this has got a gap on that side, a gap on that side, I should say, and the head for the screw on that side, so don't put it in the wrong way. And we are going to put that back in with a bit of luck. I'm going to put that in. Like that. You want to be quite careful. It's a bit finicky, but you don't want to strip the thread, you know, so if you'd just got to do it carefully. Carefuling, my small children used to say. I'm carefuling. So those of you who like old carburetor cars with carbs, on a Seagull you can't adjust the timing because it's completely fixed. So the only thing you can adjust basically is the needle. And they say the default is flat. And then you can experiment. If it's not running hell of a well, you can say maybe put it half a turn in, see how it runs, or half a turn out, see how it runs, but not much more than that. And when we put it back in, and you see there's a little edge on there, so it's got to go in the right place. So that's going to go in there. That's going to go in there. I need to get that flush. And then that's going to go on top there. And that needs to make a nice seal on the top. So we have cleaned the carb. We have cleaned the banjo bolt, which is going to go on there. We cleaned the little valve inside there, which is good. That over there. We cleaned the fuel tap. I will not bore you while I put the little screw back in because I don't want to come back to this. And again, you don't want to strip it if it doesn't want to go in. It might just not be straight. There we go. Was its little steel washer. We have offline cleaned the tank. That goes back in there. And that goes on there. And now everything from the tank through the tap, through there, through the banjo, and into the carb is all cleaned, and that is how you maintain your fuel system, and well worth doing it once a year. It's quite a fun job. It's not super difficult. Hope you find it useful. Cheers for now. Bye.